Tracy Green, I'm so glad to have you back here. I'm thrilled that we're going to continue this Free Press series and keep people informed on the legal happenings as they are breaking, and they are breaking fast and furious. And unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding on what it all really means. But before we get on to our next subject, I'd like you to say a few words about John McCain, who just passed away.
Well, being from Arizona, where I grew up and went to college and law school, did my judicial clerkship there, I knew McCain. I'd met him a number of times, knew his staff, and even though we were on different sides politically, I always had a great respect for his integrity and also for really trying to, and we could see it at the later years, being kind. And I do think he learned from his own mistakes in the Keating scandal that occurred. And that was it was a sad thing to hear about him passing away. So I like to, I guess acknowledge that. And it was nice to see someone stand up for doing the right thing in the past couple of years.
Absolutely. And I think you hit on the keyword integrity. And with that keyword, we're going to move along to our first subject here. And I'd like to talk about the players. There's much confusion over who is doing what, who is representing whom, who's really a lawyer and who's a flack. And so let's break it down a little bit. Let's get a sense of who the players are. And I'll just set it up a little bit. A year ago when we met, you were saying how Trump hadn't even gotten serious about his legal assistance yet, and now you've obviously seen a change there. So maybe we can start with him.
Well, let's just start with the special counsel. With respect, he brought someone in, Emmett Flood, into the White House, and he brought him in, I believe, in April of this year. And Emmett Flood is completely qualified. He had represented Clinton before. He represented Bush before. Bush was accused of firing some U.S. attorneys mid-year. He worked on that for 2 years. He's known as a straight arrow.
Yeah.
But he clerked for Scalia. And even though he's in the White House, so technically he works there, he will be good for Trump because he is not going to let the day-to-day ups and downs interfere.
Gotcha.
One thing that Emmett Flood, I would say, is very good, apart from being extraordinarily bright, I think, is that he is someone who he believes in the office of the presidency. So even if he doesn't or hasn't completely agreed with President Trump, to the extent that he feels he needs to defend the office of the presidency, he will push, and that's what he will work on doing with the special counsel. He'll try to protect it, and he will try to get a message across that the special counsel investigation and some of these other things are undermining the results of the election, which fits in with what Trump likes to say. So when he brought him in, it was a very good choice.
And I think that most people in America believe that Rudy Giuliani is his mayor. What role is is his attorney? What role is Giuliani serving?
In my view, he's PR legal. And there is, we can always have legal problems and we can have PR problems. And one of the trends that's been happening now is that there are lawyers who are becoming PR damage control experts.
Sure.
Because if you can tell the lawyer PR person everything, and it's attorney-client privilege. That's exactly what Lanny Davis is doing with respect to Michael
Cohen. Okay.
Lanny Davis is not counsel of record in Michael Cohen's criminal case. But he can get out there. He can do what some of these other lawyers, are not going to do, and get on TV, get access, and try to win it on the PR side.
Okay, so I think, again, there's another misconception that most Americans who are paying attention, even close attention, have. We think Lanny Davis is Cohen's attorney. So what are we missing? There's actually the PR legal spin guys, and then there's the guys actually in the trenches doing the work. Like, who's actually doing the work for Cohen if it's not Davis?
Well, I made up you'll be able to see it here.
Yeah, nice.
So this is Cohen's, and if I need to adjust it. So here's Lanny Davis, who's doing PR strategy. Guy Petrillo and Amy Lester are Michael Cohen. They come from a boutique white-collar criminal defense firm in Washington, D.C., I mean, in New York City. They are representing him in the criminal case.
Amazing. Okay.
Previously, Stephen, so they don't really have any connection to Donald Trump or the Trump campaign. Previously, Stephen Ryan of a firm, McDermott, Will & Emery, represented Cohen in the special counsel. Now, interestingly enough, some of McDermott, Will's, and Emery's bills were paid by either the Trump personally or the Trump campaign.
Okay.
We see that.
And tilt the screen down a little bit so we see a little bit more. No, tilt the computer screen down a little bit so we see a little bit more, and then we'll adjust it back for you again. Yeah, there we go. I think we now we have the full left. So go down even a little bit more. Okay, yes. So now we can see the players on the left. So let's keep on. Let's stay focused on that right now. So who do we have here next?
Well, now we're going to get into the civil lawyers, and the civil case has caused some interesting complications for Trump and for Cohen. When that lawsuit got filed, and remember, who filed it? Well, it was Trump and Cohen's attorneys who filed it in order to shut down Stormy Daniels. So one of the lawyers, and this is going to, one of the lawyers who's represented Cohen in the past was a fellow by the name of Larry Rosen of LaRocca Hornick.
Okay.
He represented Essential Consultants. However, the records from the FEC show that the Trump campaign has paid LaRocca Hornick about $250,000. So one of the issues is going to be, how is it?
Let's get you back in there. That's awesome.
That if the payment to Stormy Daniels was not campaign related,
right?
Why is the Trump campaign? Why was it paying for the civil lawyer?
Right. Right.
And not only did the Trump campaign pay for Michael Cohen's civil lawyer, also paid for Trump's civil lawyer in the similar lawsuit.
Okay.
Now, so this civil case is has caused all kinds of complications in this. So now, if we go back to it, so there is another lawyer, I suppose, that we've got. If I look at it, and so this Brett Bakley.
Yes.
He's represented Essential Consultants. He's a Manhattan Beach, California lawyer. No indication the campaign or Trump has paid for him.
Okay.
So that's on the Cohen side.
Got you.
And the big split was with respect to when Ryan was representing Cohen. It appears that he was part of a joint defense agreement. And when you have a joint defense agreement, it would be that defense agreement might be with Jared Kushner's attorney, Trump's attorney, and everyone shares information. And in June, when everything got hot and heavy, and Cohen withdrew from joint defense, Ryan became the former attorney.
Wow.
So you can tell by the lawyers and by the players, if he had stuck with Ryan and stayed in the joint, then they knew that he probably would not cooperate. But once he decided to cooperate, he needed to leave.
Wow. So Lanny Davis is PR legal, doing the spin and getting up there and saying whatever he says. He can retract. He can kind of, put the right words into the mainstream. But it's Guy Petrillo who's actually doing the trench work.
Yes, and Guy Petrillo and Amy Lester. I mean, it's nice to see a woman on a team because I do think bring a lot to it. One of the things about Guy Petrillo is he was in the Southern District of New York in the U.S. Attorney's Office at one point about 10 years ago. He was the chief of criminal division.
Okay.
Amy Petrillo she'd done a lot of securities fraud case, was also in that office.
Interesting.
And so they're extremely knowledgeable. They know the judges, they know the courts, and have handled a lot of high-profile cases.
Okay, great. Now, do you have anything you want to say in the blue side here on Team Trump there?
We can go back. One of the things that I find interesting is, again, this could just be inside baseball, and so maybe it's truly...
No, we assume we know nothing, and I got to say, from the response we got from the last one, we can actually see it the way you had it. We could see it just fine. We could see the blue side. There we go. Perfect.
All right. So one of the things is now Don Jr. is being represented by an attorney named Alan Fuder Foss.
Yes.
And he's a New York criminal lawyer.
Yeah.
And he represented Colombo crime family, and he's someone that had a lot of background in that. Now, interestingly enough, the campaign is paying his legal fees, or at least part of them. Right. That's with the special counsel. I find the contrast, however, Jared Kushner, I know you say, gosh, I'm sorry, I'm moving these things around here.
No, this is so fun. I love lo-fi production. It's all about content.
Jared Kushner is represented by Abby Lowell.
Okay.
And not only he's represented in the special counsel and in the civil case.
Roger that.
Everything that I see, and the civil case is that civil case in New York that was filed by the Democratic Party or the Democratic Committee.
Yep.
That was in terms of the Russia, in terms of the hacking and against the campaign.
Yep.
Not against Trump, but against Jared Kushner. And Jared Kushner, from everything I can tell, he's paying his own legal bills. He is not having the campaign pay his legal bills, and I think that's a very smart move.
And why do you say that?
It gives him, when you think about it, here is all people are donating to his campaign to reelect him for president or to, for the next campaign. And when he's going to use that money to pay the legal bills for essential consultant Stormy Daniels, it makes things all of a sudden campaign related. And in addition, I think when we all know that there's attorney-client privilege and maybe when someone pays the bill, but what if the FEC audits and says, we want to see what the bills are. Let's make sure that this was campaign related or in furtherance of the campaign. When I say it's smart, I think in terms of Jared Kushner, maybe because of his dad's own experience,
yes,
pay your own bills. You don't need the FEC coming in and saying, can we just see the bills? Because sometimes courts rule they're not privileged. Let's look and see what was done.
I think it's important just to take a moment here to tell people who may not know why Jared Kushner would have experience with something like that in relation to his father. 1 or 2 lines. We are assuming some knowledge. The people that I've curated through Free Press have more knowledge than the average folk, but I really like to spell things out as much as possible.
Right. Yeah, Jared Kushner's father had been prosecuted, criminally and had even served time in federal prison.
Yes.
And so
Jared knows. Jared used to visit him in prison, and just a little sordid bit on that is that he set up his own brother-in-law in a kind of sad way. And I'm sure people can go ahead and look more into that themselves. But I always think to myself, this is not a world that they're unfamiliar with, this criminal underworld, alas. Myths have been built on what I believe are, lesser beings. However, moving right along, I did notice that, last year when I was following how much of the funds were being used for legal, I kept watching it go up incrementally. They'd turn in a report and you'd see 10%'s going to legal bills and then 15%'s going to legal bills. And then I looked up the attorneys and a lot of them have experience with mob-related cases. And I thought, gee whiz, this doesn't sound very savory, And then you saw, of course, people like Robert Mercer donating, millions of dollars toward that. There's a lot of people with skin in the game. They don't want to see this administration fail because they have a lot of money riding on it. And yet, when you look at how much is going toward legal, you have to sort of wonder, what's really going on here.
It just surprises me that on the Trump side, let's say essential consultants, or even when he got involved in the lawsuit, you think he'd want to use a lawyer that isn't paid by the campaign, has never been paid by the campaign, because if you're going to argue, this was a personal matter. I had that case settled with Stormy Daniels to protect my brand and my licensing and my reputation. It was not campaign related. This is where when everything is on the fly, it's right before a campaign, or when someone gets a lawsuit, someone could say, well, of course it's campaign related. Well, that may come back to bite them a little bit later on, because then you can just say, well, let's look at those bills and let's see, did the campaign pay for essential consultant's attorney, and did it pay for Trump's attorney in that lawsuit?
And is this where you want to talk a little bit about that sort of emotional decision making? Because I think that could play into some of this.
Well, I tell my clients that when you get emotional, 2/3 of your brain shuts down. And sometimes you're just on instinct, and we all like to trust our instincts. So one of the things that I think could have happened in this case, when you look at it, let's just use the Cohen as an example.
Yeah.
It's October 7th, the Access Hollywood tape gets revealed. And then on the next day, October 8th, knock, 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 all of a sudden, Stormy Daniels comes back out of the woodwork and calls the Inquirer and wants money for his story.
Right.
And the emotional part of it is nobody likes having to pay lawsuits, or someone has a consensual relationship, all of a sudden get hit up for money. And so then when someone wants money, there is that part of it, just how dare you? You know, they feel extorted even if it's completely legal. So then, and then there's pressure, there's write a campaign, you want to make it go away. So it may not be that everyone's got that time, and also they're emotional about it, they just go, let's get rid of it. And they're not going to think about it, they're not going to take the time, and that emotion driving, and it continued to drive. So one of the civil case, when Michael Avenatti writes a letter to the lawyer Larry Rosen,
right,
and to Michael Cohen himself, say it was right before that Stormy Daniels interview was going to be on CBS for 60 Minutes. Let's settle, return the $130,000, mutual, that's it. And that was before Michael Avenatti got those other documents, before anyone had found out that there were tapes, before there was a search warrant. That could have been really nice and clean, but there probably was something like, we're not settling with her. You know, we're not going to do that, because also when you have, if someone had a client like Donald Trump who's like, I want to win.
Mm-hmm.
I want to win. I'm not settling. You know, doesn't want to look like there's anything to settle. So that's where things might be a little bit more emotional. Now someone looks at that letter and says, well, you know, this was a foolish decision. And it also shows that Michael Avenatti, where someone might criticize him and say, oh, look, he's just doing this for the press. He was doing the right thing by his client. He didn't want to expose her to maybe potential damages. He didn't know what's going to happen. He offered to settle. We'll give you the money back, and we'll settle it, and then we'll all walk away. So and then of course they didn't do it. And you know, the other civil lawsuit that might come into play is the one in Washington where the Trump campaign, Jared Kushner's named, you know, others are named, and so that'll be a case. We'll see what happens there. With respect to Trump's attorneys, just kind of going back to that.
Yes.
Said with respect to.
I can see it. That's perfect.
Yeah. With respect to Flood, one of the things about Giuliani will be that Giuliani, even though he is being a PR damage control lawyer right now, he does have the advantage. Emmett Flood, no one's ever seen him on TV. Yes. He's not coming out.
Right.
So Giuliani can get out there, can get it wrong, and although you can try to impute it to Trump, he's not doing it. So Trump may tweet very much generalities, witch hunt, you know, Mueller is, you know, controlled by the Democrats, or whatever he might do, but I think he tries to be, and I think this Flood would encourage that, Trump will not give the details. Mm-hmm. Doesn't give the details on Stormy Daniels or on Michael Cohen. He just makes these general statements.
Right.
And what does he do? So now, but Giuliani, one of the things, as much of and we've all seen, and he's an easy target for lawyers, but before Giuliani, one of the things that may complicate things is that previously, you want to talk about legal bills that were paid? Well, he was at Greenberg Traurig. That's that firm he just left in April.
Yes.
Yeah, they got paid a small fortune, as did Bracewell and Giuliani, from Make America Number One.
Right.
Make America Number One is the PAC that's really Mercer controlled.
Yes.
So Giuliani was giving, and his firm was giving campaign legal advice really on FEC, a lot of legal consulting about those types of things.
Oh, even Cambridge Analytica. I mean, that's one of the things that came up. It's like everybody's scratching their heads going, how can a foreign company or a company with people working in different countries actually have an impact on our elections? And I read the memos that they were putting out there. There was some serious gray areas and some serious concerns.
So people look at the lawyers to see what the coordinated is. Well, one of the things, if you're Giuliani's firm and you're giving legal advice to a PAC, such as Make America Number One, how to comply with the law, how to comply with FEC, it's sort of interesting when Giuliani's very involved in Trump's campaign.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to give advice to a PAC is supposed to be separate from a campaign.
Mm-hmm.
But it also shows Giuliani's knowledge of campaign finance laws, which should be, and you saw that one opinion that came out of that former firm of his to Cambridge Analytica that was very detailed. So some of these, the FEC will also continue because someone will say, what happened here?
Right.
How can Giuliani be so involved in the Trump campaign and then be advising a PAC and being paid by them?
Right.
Because if you're going to do that, you're supposed to, you're not supposed to coordinate. You're supposed to be somewhat separate.
Yes.
So it just brings some other layers.
Yes.
Doesn't mean it's criminal, but it's just like seeing the same lawyers represent the Trump campaign and then represent Michael Cohen or represent Donald Trump in civil lawsuits. It blurs it. And then someone's going to say, well, this maybe the real purpose was, that it was all campaign related. So one of the things with Trump, he's got some other counsel. We've seen Jay Sukalo. We've seen a few revolving folks with respect to it. I think that I would predict probably that there may be a few lawyers that are working under Giuliani or people that we don't see in the foreground that don't come out in terms of doing the analysis on this. And Charles Harder is someone I put down here because he's one of the individuals. He took his firm, Harder LLP, got paid $100,000 by the campaign. Mm-hmm. And he's Charles Harder is one of the lawyers who represented Trump in the Essential Consultants Clifford case. So now maybe it could have been relating to another lawsuit, another civil lawsuit, but you've got that same attorney, and then is someone billing a little bit more on the campaign? Right. And because I don't think they really thought these FEC violations were going to be taken that seriously. Yeah. I don't think they anticipated back in March and April when these lawyers were working on this, that come July, that Michael Cohen was going to plead to an FEC violation involving those cases. They didn't see it coming, and now it looks a little foolish to have had the Trump campaign pay for the lawyers relating to Stormy Daniels' case, both in New York and in Los Angeles. So that's
as complex as it is. It always comes down to some simple stuff. You're not supposed to do this. This isn't how it's supposed to work. And for somebody who you said is very savvy with litigation, has been, litigated his entire career or sued others, you said a very important line. So much of what he has done has settled on the courthouse steps over and over and over again. Why is this different, and what can we expect from here?
Well, right now, when you say it's different, are you talking about the...
It's so funny. It's so
Daniels and Cohen case?
We could be, or just maybe it's the overarching scrutiny. Maybe it's just sort of everything. I think that perhaps in his mind he's been Teflon with all this stuff, but I don't think he's ever been in a position like this before where he has this scrutiny. I know as a quasi-normal human being, I could not handle all that coming at me. This guy just walks across the lawn like, just another day.
Well, and that's maybe what's made him successful in the past, that ice runs a little bit in his veins and he's able to slough it off. But the stakes are higher, and so that's why on that one civil lawsuit, I remind people it was sort of the same thing with Clinton. Yeah. Clinton got sued by Paula Jones. Now, it would have been incredibly unorthodox, but he tried to fight that a sitting president should not be able to be sued. They lost that battle. One of the things might have been to say, I don't believe a president should be sued. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to sit for a deposition. You know what? I'm just going to default. Right. Head, get your claim for damages. It's federal court. What's she going to get? $200,000, $300,000, $400,000? I'll default before I do it. Nope. He went to a deposition. He lied. Did you have sex with him? No. And then it's about the definition of sex. And that civil case brought him down. Wow. Brought him to where he was impeachment. So, and I think these civil lawsuits, because you have subpoena power, you have that's why I think the Democratic Party, the committee has filed that lawsuit in New York. I'm sure there'll be tons of motions. I saw there was some game playing recently with Jared Kushner that they asked to serve him by mail or by some other process.
Yes, right.
The federal judge said, no, you need to serve him the proper way, which usually means personal service. Well, every time they would go to try to serve him, Secret Service wouldn't let them in the door. So then all of a sudden they went back to the federal judge in New York and they said, come on, let's not play games here.
Yes.
And so that's, so I think that's the civil cases can be a problem. And the Trump campaign had a lot of civil lawsuits.
Yes.
And some of them had nothing to do with Trump. I think he had promised to pay the legal bills of all his people, who got attacked or who attacked someone. There were lawsuits on that. There were lawsuits, and so he can handle the lawsuits. But when you decide on a campaign to pay somebody's legal bills, you better be ready to have someone challenge this as part of a campaign. So that to me is one of the most interesting things about that case, and that's one of the other things that I think on the Cohen that's going to look, and that's why you have someone like Giuliani going out and talking about PR, because he'll say, well, Michael Cohen paid him. Well, then we remember Michael Cohen didn't pay Stormy Daniels. Michael Cohen financed it, formed a corporation, either lent it to a corporation or funded that. The corporation paid Stormy Daniels. And then Michael Cohen, it appears, we haven't seen the invoices, Michael Cohen, 2 months later, submits invoices to the Trump organization and appears to be to Michael Cohen personally or his law firm, not Central Consultants. So those different layers, they're going to get lost. That's why you do the PR campaign. That's why you do the PR legal campaign, and that's why you fight it. And it may not change the prosecutors' minds, but it might change the public's minds and what their tolerance is for prosecution.
And we have never been here before, and this is complicated stuff, even to somebody who deals in this world day in, day out. Can we point people toward any possible outcome, or is it just TBD? Do we not really know how this story's going to end?
Yeah, we don't know how the movie's going to end, and it will be up and down, and it's just going to take time, and you're going to have to let the documents come out and see what else happens. And human beings are incredibly unpredictable, and Trump may be very stubborn about it, and he may not be willing to admit that. He won't give an inch. He will claim that there was no way that this was campaign related, and he will stick to that. And I think he may have one of the things that may be frustrating for the people there may be some people that watch this that really don't believe it's a campaign violation.
Right.
But for the people that definitely think that it is, one of the things that they're going to have to look at and consider is that there probably isn't any document that Trump ever signed that authorized Cohen, probably in the heat of that end of the campaign. It gets signed. I think the deal gets signed around October 25th, 2016. It might have been very likely that Cohen's not calling him up like, well, do you think I should set up this shell corp? Should I pay her out of this? He may have been told, pay her, take care of it, and then he went and just handled it.
Yeah.
And didn't talk to him about it, didn't do anything, and there may have not. And Trump's fingerprints, maybe by design, may not be on this. And so I think I try to tell people, don't get emotionally attached to the outcome. Even in my own cases, when I want things to go a certain way, what you can do is try to ask for justice.
Yes.
And you can try to say, what I want is I want what's just and what's fair here. And even if things didn't get, if Trump is not prosecuted for campaign violation that Michael Cohen is, even if some people think that's not fair, some people think it's the right result, it has all come out in the press. It has all come out in the papers. Yeah. And, that does have, and he's had to consume a lot of his time and energy and finances dealing with this. So, he will have a long day, and he will continue to have some long days dealing with this.
Beautiful. That's a nice, good starter kit on some of the players. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
This
Heidi.
rocks. Okay, great.
Hey, until next time.
Yep.